All right, so are you ready for this? Like today we're diving into this absolutely wild situation in Ukraine. Talk about a high-stakes poker game, right? Imagine being President Zelensky right now.
Yeah.
U.S. military aid.
Yeah.
It's the stuff that's been keeping Ukraine in the fight, right? It's
Right.
suddenly frozen,
Yeah.
and he's got this impossible choice to make,
Mhm.
combative to some serious demands or risk, like
Yeah.
his country's entire defense just crumbling.
What's really striking here, I think, is the timing. We're not just talking about any aid. We're talking artillery shells that could be completely depleted by May or June,
Wow.
and Patriot missile stocks that might only last a few weeks.
Well, hold up. So basically the clock is ticking.
Yeah.
And these are not just any weapons. We're talking about like the heavy hitters,
Yeah.
right? The stuff that's been holding back a full-blown Russian offensive.
Exactly. And this isn't just some theoretical threat either.
Right.
Remember back in December 2023 when nearly $60 billion in aid got held up?
Yeah.
It sent shockwaves through Ukraine, both on the front lines and in the government.
Yeah.
This time the stakes are even higher.
Okay, so we've got this looming deadline and a sense of deja vu, I guess, from past aid disruptions.
Right.
This excerpt from Ukraine at the Crossroads, A Fateful Choice, really drives home this psychological impact.
Yeah.
They quote a Ukrainian official, Mikhailo Podolyak, who's basically saying, like, hold on, what programs are going to be affected? This isn't just about, like, a delay in supplies. It's shaking their faith in their ability to defend themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you have to remember, this is all happening on top of the already brutal realities of this war.
Right.
This source includes a chilling account from Yegor Fursov, a sergeant leading a drone unit.
Okay.
And he talks about how drones have become their lifeline.
Uh-huh.
But without the protection of Patriot missiles, they're basically sitting ducks.
Wow.
It's like sending these guys out on suicide missions.
Man, that's heavy. So it's not just like the physical loss of supplies.
Yeah.
It's that crushing blow to morale. The feeling that they're being abandoned right when things are getting really desperate.
Exactly. And that's where the U.S.'s binary peace vision comes into play.
Binary peace. That sounds a little too neat and tidy for the mess they're in.
Yeah.
What exactly does that mean?
It's essentially the U.S. saying, look, Russia needs to back down, honor an agreement, and that's it. No more demands from Ukraine.
But wouldn't that be seen as rewarding Russia's aggression? I mean, they invaded a sovereign country.
Right.
How can you just tell Ukraine to accept whatever terms Russia dictates?
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like a recipe for lasting peace.
And that's where the tension lies.
Yeah.
This U.S. vision is clashing head-on with what Ukraine's European allies are pushing for.
Okay.
They want more concrete security guarantees for Ukraine,
Yeah.
something with teeth,
Right.
not just words on paper that can be broken at any moment.
Yeah, especially given what happened with the Budapest Memorandum back in '94, right?
Exactly.
Ukraine gave up their nukes in exchange for security guarantees. That turned out to be worthless when Russia annexed Crimea.
Right.
No wonder they're wary of empty promises.
This current situation is dredging up all those old wounds and anxieties.
Yeah.
You can practically hear the alarm bells going off across Europe as they watch this unfold.
So it's not just Ukraine that's feeling the pressure here.
Right.
The whole Western alliance is being tested, and the U.S. seems to be going a rogue, which, let's be honest, is not exactly a confidence booster.
Not at all.
No.
And that brings us back to Zelensky
Yeah.
and the pressure cooker he's in, right?
Right.
On one side, you have the U.S. dangling vital military aid, but with strings attached that could undermine Ukraine's sovereignty
Yeah.
and alienate their European allies.
Right.
On the other side, you have his own people, his troops, who were depending on him to make the right call, a call that could determine their survival.
Man, that's a heavy burden to bear.
It is.
I mean, what would you do if you were in his shoes?
Oh, I don't know.
Knowing that the fate of your nation, potentially millions of lives, hinges on your next move.
It's a decision that requires weighing the immediate needs of his country against the long-term consequences for Ukraine's future, for international relations, for the entire global balance of power.
Okay, before we go any further down that rabbit hole, we need to unpack the specifics of these demands.
Okay.
Apparently, the Trump administration is not just asking for an apology from Zelensky,
Right.
but also access to Ukraine's mineral resources.
Wow.
That's not just about military aid anymore.
No.
That's about economic control.
And it raises some serious questions about the U.S.'s true motives here.
Yeah.
Are they genuinely trying to broker a peace deal, or are they leveraging this crisis to advance their own interests?
And how are European leaders reacting to this power play?
Right.
Are they falling in line with the U.S. or are they pushing back? This feels like a turning point,
Yeah.
not just for Ukraine, but for the entire Western alliance.
Absolutely.
We'll dive into that right after. Wait, no breaks on this deep dive.
Okay.
Stay tuned. We're just getting warmed up.
Okay, so we've got this high-stakes showdown brewing between the U.S. and its European allies.
Right.
You mentioned alarm bells going off.
Yeah.
What exactly are European leaders saying about all this?
Well, they're not mincing words.
Okay.
Some are calling the U.S. demands unreasonable. Others are accusing them of undermining the entire Western alliance.
Wow.
France and Germany in particular are leading the charge for a more unified European response.
So are they just talking tough, or are they actually putting their money where their mouth is? I mean, what are they doing to counter the U.S.'s power play and support Ukraine?
They're stepping up their own military and financial aid to Ukraine.
Okay.
They're also exploring ways to provide those security guarantees that Ukraine is desperately seeking.
Right.
It's a delicate balancing act because they don't want to provoke Russia, but they also can't afford to let Ukraine down.
I imagine this whole situation is making Putin just like rub his hands together in glee.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about a dream come true for him. A fractured West, a weakened NATO. This has got to have some serious long-term consequences.
Absolutely. It's a major test for the Western alliance. And the outcome could reshape the global landscape for decades to come.
Wow.
If the U.S. continues to go it alone, it could embolden Russia to make even more aggressive moves.
So we're not just talking about the fate of Ukraine here.
No.
We're talking about the potential for a wider conflict.
Right.
Maybe even like a new Cold War with Russia.
It's a real possibility, and one that keeps a lot of world leaders up at night.
Oh, yeah.
The global order that emerged after the Cold War is fraying at the edges. And this situation in Ukraine could be the thread that unravels the whole thing.
Okay, that's terrifying. But
Yeah.
let's not get ahead of ourselves. Right
No.
now, the focus is on Zelensky
Mm-hmm.
and the impossible choice he's facing.
Yeah.
We know he's under immense pressure from the U.S.,
Yeah.
but we also know he's a shrewd and resilient leader.
Absolutely.
What are some of the scenarios we're looking at here?
Well, one scenario is that he caves to the U.S. pressure, he issues the public apology, grants access to Ukraine's resources, and the aid flows again.
But at what cost? I mean, he'd be seen as a puppet of the U.S.
Right.
His reputation at home and abroad would be shattered.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He would likely face backlash from his own people, and he would risk alienating those crucial European allies who are offering a different path.
Okay, so what's the other option? He tells the U.S. to shove it and goes all in with Europe.
It's a high-risk, high-reward scenario.
Yeah.
He could solidify those ties with Europe,
Right.
but he would be gambling on their ability to provide the military and financial support that Ukraine needs to survive.
Right.
And he would be burning bridges with the U.S., which still hold a lot of cards in this game.
So either way, it's a lose-lose situation.
It seems that way.
Is there a middle ground here?
Yep.
Some kind of compromise that doesn't involve complete capitulation or a full-blown rupture with the U.S.?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
Zelensky might try to negotiate some concessions from the U.S.,
Okay.
perhaps a less public apology or a phased approach to resource access,
Right.
while simultaneously strengthening ties with Europe and seeking additional support from them.
Sounds like he's walking a tightrope.
He is.
One wrong step and the whole thing could come crashing down.
And let's not forget the human element here.
Right.
This source doesn't just focus on the geopolitical chess game.
Right.
It reminds us that Zelensky is a man who cares deeply about his people.
Yeah.
He's seen the devastation of this war firsthand, the loss of life, the displacement, the trauma.
Yeah.
Those human costs weigh heavily on him.
It's easy to get lost in all the talk of global power dynamics and forget that there are millions of real people caught in the crossfire.
Absolutely.
Their lives are hanging in the balance too,
Yeah.
and their hopes and fears are intertwined with Zelensky's every decision.
It's a powerful reminder that these aren't just abstract political issues we're discussing.
Yeah.
This is about real lives, real families, real communities that have been torn apart by this conflict.
And it makes Zelensky's dilemma even more agonizing.
Oh, yeah.
He's not just making a strategic calculation, he's making a moral one.
Absolutely.
How do you balance the immediate needs of your people for survival with the long-term aspirations of your nation for freedom and independence?
It's a question that has plagued leaders throughout history.
Yeah.
And there's no easy answer, no formula to follow.
Right.
It comes down to judgment, to intuition, to a deep understanding of the human condition.
And to courage, right.
Oh, yeah.
I can't imagine the weight of that responsibility.
Yeah.
Knowing that the fate of your nation and potentially the world rests on your shoulders.
And let's not forget, Zelensky is not just facing external pressures.
Right.
He's also dealing with internal divisions within Ukraine.
Oh, yeah.
Not everyone agrees with his approach.
Okay.
And there are powerful voices calling for a different course of action.
So it's not just a tug of war between the U.S. and Europe.
Right.
It's a tug of war within Ukraine itself. You've got those who are willing to compromise for peace and those who are determined to fight to the bitter end, no matter the cost.
And that internal struggle adds another layer of complexity to Zelensky's decision-making.
Right.
He has to find a way to unite his people, to inspire them, to give them hope, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds.
It's a Herculean task.
It is.
And one that requires more than just political savvy.
Absolutely.
It requires a deep understanding of the human psyche.
Yeah.
The ability to tap into people's emotions, their aspirations, their fears.
And it requires a profound sense of empathy.
Right.
The ability to see the world through the eyes of others.
Yeah.
To understand their perspectives, even if they differ from your own.
This is getting pretty deep.
It is.
I'm starting to think this Zelensky guy is more than just a politician.
Yeah.
He's like a philosopher king straight out of Plato's Republic.
Well, he certainly has his work cut out for him.
He does.
Navigating a minefield of competing interests, conflicting ideologies, and deeply entrenched historical grievances.
And all of this is playing out on a global stage with the whole world watching and waiting to see how this drama unfolds.
It's a reminder that we live in an interconnected world,
Right.
where events in one corner of the globe can have ripple effects that reach far and wide.
And that the choices made by leaders today can shape the destiny of nations and indeed the future of humanity itself.
It's a sobering thought,
Yeah.
but also an inspiring one,
Okay.
because it reminds us that we are not just passive observers of history.
Right.
We are active participants.
Yeah.
We have the power to shape the world around us, for better or for worse.
Okay. That's pretty profound stuff.
Yeah,
But let's get back to the nitty-gritty.
right.
What are some of the specific actions that Zelensky could take in the coming days or weeks? We're talking concrete steps, not just philosophical musings.
Well, he could try to open a direct line of communication with the Biden administration,
Okay.
bypassing the more hawkish elements within the Trump camp.
Right. Yeah.
He could also reach out to key European leaders,
Mm.
seeking their support for a joint statement, condemning the U.S. demands and reaffirming their commitment to Ukraine's sovereignty.
So playing the diplomatic game,
Yeah.
trying to rally international support to counter the U.S. pressure.
Exactly.
Okay.
He could also try to leverage the media,
Right?
giving interviews to international news outlets,
Mm-hmm.
highlighting the humanitarian crisis in Ukraine,
Right.
and making a direct appeal to the American people,
Okay.
reminding them of the shared values that bind the two nations together.
It's like a public relations offensive,
Yeah,
trying to win hearts and minds, not just political points.
and it could be effective.
Yeah.
Public opinion can be a powerful force, especially in a democracy like the U.S.
Right.
If Zelensky can generate enough public sympathy for Ukraine's cause,
Uh-huh.
it could put pressure on the Biden administration to reconsider their stance.
So he's got to be a diplomat,
Yeah.
strategist, a
Uh-huh.
communicator,
Yeah,
and a master of public relations, all rolled into one.
it seems that way.
Man, this guy's got a lot on his plate.
And let's not forget, he's doing all of this while leading a country that's actively at war.
Right.
He's got to oversee military operations,
Mm-hmm.
manage a struggling economy,
Right.
and provide for the basic needs of his people.
Talk about multitasking on a whole other level.
It's a testament to his resilience and his unwavering dedication to his country.
Yeah.
He's a leader who inspires not just through words, but through actions.
I'm starting to see why he's become such a global icon.
Yeah.
It's not just about his charisma or his eloquence. It's about his unwavering commitment to his principles,
Right.
his refusal to back down in the face of overwhelming odds.
He embodies the spirit of resilience.
Yeah.
The indomitable will to resist tyranny and oppression.
And that's a message that resonates far beyond the borders of Ukraine.
Absolute.
It's a message that speaks to all those who yearn for freedom, for justice, for a world where might doesn't make right.
It's a message that reminds us that even in the darkest of times, hope can endure and courage can prevail.
Wow, we've gone from a deep dive into a geopolitical crisis to a philosophical exploration of the human spirit.
It has.
I think we need a moment to process all of this. All right, so we've laid out the battlefield, literally and figuratively. Zelensky's got this impossible choice. global power dynamics are shifting like crazy, and the whole world's holding its breath. What happens next?
Well, predicting the future is always a risky business,
Yeah.
especially when you've got a leader as unpredictable and determined as Zelensky.
Right.
But based on his past actions, his speeches, his whole approach to this war, I think we can make some educated guesses.
Okay, lay it on me. What's your expert take? Does he cave? Does he fight back? Or does he pull off some Jedi mind trick and find like a third option?
I think he's going to try for that third option,
Okay.
the one that nobody sees coming.
Right.
He's not going to surrender Ukraine's sovereignty,
Right.
but he's also not going to burn bridges with the U.S. entirely.
Yeah.
He'll play the long game, using every tool at his disposal to navigate this minefield.
So what does that look like in practice? Give me the play-by-play.
I think we'll see a carefully calibrated response, maybe even a bit of strategic ambiguity.
Okay.
He might acknowledge the need for dialogue with the U.S., but emphasize that any solution has to involve Ukraine's European allies and address their security concerns.
So a bit of a diplomatic dance, keeping everyone guessing while he buys time.
Exactly. He'll likely use this opportunity to rally international support,
Right.
highlighting the dangers of appeasing Russia and the need for a united front against aggression.
Yeah.
And don't underestimate the power of public opinion.
Right.
Zelensky's a master communicator. He knows how to connect with people to make them understand the human cost of this conflict.
He could turn this into like a global PR campaign, right?
Absolutely.
Painting Ukraine as the underdog fighting for democracy against a tyrannical superpower.
And that narrative has a lot of appeal, especially in the West.
Yeah.
It taps into those deep-seated Cold War anxieties, the fear of a resurgent Russia threatening global stability.
So he's playing chess while the U.S. is playing checkers.
Yeah, kinda.
He's thinking several moves ahead while they're stuck on this transactional, apologize and you'll get your toys back mentality.
And that's what makes this situation so fascinating,
Right.
the clash of worldviews,
Yeah.
of different approaches to power and diplomacy.
Right.
The U.S., with its emphasis on hard power and unilateral action, versus Zelensky, who's leveraging soft power, international alliances, and the moral high ground.
So you're saying this isn't just about who has the bigger guns.
Yeah.
It's about who can win the narrative war, who can shape global perceptions of this conflict.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in that arena, Zelensky has a clear advantage.
Right.
He's the face of resistance.
Right.
The symbol of a nation fighting for its survival against overwhelming odds.
Yeah. It's like something out of a movie,
Yeah.
except the stakes are terrifyingly real.
And the outcome is far from certain. Even if Zelensky manages to navigate this immediate crisis, the long-term challenges facing Ukraine are immense.
Yeah.
Rebuilding a war-torn country, securing lasting peace, ensuring their independence in a world where the rules are constantly changing. Those are battles that will take years, maybe even decades to win.
So this isn't just a one-off deep dive. It's like the first chapter in an epic saga.
Right.
And we're all waiting to see how the plot unfolds.
And that's the beauty of history. It's always in motion, always full of surprises.
Right.
We can analyze the past, dissect the present, but the future is ultimately unwritten.
Right.
It's shaped by the choices we make, the actions we take, the stories we tell.
So if you're listening to this feeling overwhelmed by the complexity of it all, remember this. Even seemingly small actions can have ripple effects.
Yeah.
Staying informed, engaging in thoughtful discussions, challenging your own assumptions, those are all ways to participate in this unfolding drama.
And never underestimate the power of empathy. Try to see the world through the eyes of those on the front lines, those whose lives are most directly impacted by these decisions.
That's a powerful message to end on.
It is.
We've gone from dwindling artillery shells to the future of global order to the power of individual action.
We have.
If this deep dive has left you wanting more, I encourage you to keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep connecting the dots, because the story is far from over.
It certainly is.
Thanks for joining us on this wild ride. Until next time, stay curious.